On today's episode of The Intangibles, we'll be kicking things off as always with the play of the game. At 10 minutes and 28 seconds, we'll get you caught up on the League of Legends Season 12 meta. And finally, at 24 minutes and 29 seconds, we'll break down Arcane and adapting video games for TV. Take it away, Matt.
All right, welcome and good evening and good morning and good afternoon, good day, good night, good everything. My name is Matt. I am one of your hosts for another episode of The Intangibles. And I am joined here with my lovely co-host, who is equal to my hosting status and ability, Kenny.
Hi, I'm Kenny. I just took a throat lozenge.
Sounds like I need to. It's that time of the year, folks. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. We got another good show for you.
Indeed.
We're going to start... Well, actually, I don't even need to tell you what we're going to start with, I guess. Do I? Does it get introed at the beginning? I can't remember anymore. It's been so long since we've recorded.
It does get introed. They've heard me introduce it, but then you can say what we're doing, and then there'll be a nice little musical sting. This is some behind-the-curtain shit right now, folks.
And I hope you enjoy it. You got to pay extra for this kind of content. So, anyway, yes, we're going to start off with the play of the game.
Poke chat, poke chat, poke chat, poke chat.
And since it is my week for show, even though you're helping me out with one of our two topics, I'm going to allow you to go first, Kenny.
Very well. Very gracious of you. I am nominating for Play of the Game. This is a little dated, but I don't care. I am nominating Lindsey Ellis, who is a former YouTuber and an author. She is a video essayist. I don't know if this will be controversial at all, but luckily we have an audience of like 3 people. God bless each and every one of you out there for listening to this.
You're all special to us.
We might lose our entire audience based on this. So Lindsey Ellis, like I said, is a video essayist, a YouTuber. She mostly does video essays on movies, especially pop movies, and with a special interest in Disney movies. I think that's kind of how she built up her audiences. Doing sort of a literary, critical, deconstructionist deep dive into movies, especially Disney movies. They're great videos. I would say go watch them, and you still can. They're still up there, but I'm nominating her for Play of the Game because specifically she has quit YouTube. The reason she quit is she had a tweet like a year ago, maybe more, probably more. She put out a tweet when a movie came out. I don't know if you remember this. I don't even remember the name. It was like Raya and the Last Dragon or something like that.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Well, she put out a tweet that was basically amounted to what's up with all these movies just sort of like spitting up the same Avatar: The Last Airbender formula. And she got called out, one, for kind of dismissing the work that went into the movie, which, I don't know, fair enough, I guess. But 2, it kind of got roped into accusations that she was lumping all Asian-inspired media into Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is an American-made show anyway.
Right.
And she was like, what? And I was like, what? Which, okay, that's weird criticism, fine. But she basically just got roped into like a cancel culture situation. People were calling for her to be canceled. And so she has received harassment and threats for over a year now. And it's made her life miserable. And just the whole deal, like receiving death threats and awful shit. And so she put out a few more videos, and you can definitely see in those videos it's taking a toll on her mental health. And she announced somewhat recently, I quit. I'm not going to do YouTube anymore. And good for her. And fuck all those people for harassing her for absolutely no good reason.
Yeah, I find it hilarious and sad that like one of the focal points there is people comparing basically anime in general and like lumping that into being an Asian thing when, like you said, like The Last Airbender was a Western anime.
Right.
It was an American show. It's not like, I don't know, that's just a really ignorant, I guess, comparison. And clearly those people don't understand what they're arguing for or against, like based on that.
Or even if you do want to make that argument, the outrage was so out of proportion with the supposed offense. Even if you bought that she was making this comment, what the harassment she received was in no way commensurate with what she supposedly was accused of. Also, an extra thing here, a little bonus content for you. I said Lindsey Ellis is also an author because she has written 2 books now. I own both of them, and I've finished the first of them. They're a series. The first book is called Axiom's End, and it's a great book. And to pitch it, Matt, have you seen the movie Arrival?
I have.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it.
So this is, I think, it's very similar to Arrival, but better. I like it better than Arrival. Has very similar themes of aliens and communication, but is much more interested in the aliens and the mechanism of how they work and what they're like than Arrival. So it has a slightly different focus, and the characters are more interesting to me. So I would definitely give that a recommendation. Since she's not on YouTube anymore, and if that sounds interesting to you, I would say go check that out.
I will have to check it out. I feel like I've seen that book on your shelf at some point. How long have you had it?
I've had it for a long time. I've only just recently got around to reading it, and it is very good.
I was going to say, I did that title just sounds familiar to me. I can picture it on your shelf. Yeah, interesting. I might have to check that out sometime. I did like Arrival. I read Arrival's based on a short story as well. That it's kind of amazing that they took like a 20-page short story and turned it into a 2.5-hour blockbuster. That's a good movie still, you know. But I very much did enjoy that premise. So, good tip.
Yep. What do you got?
So this week for my play of the game, I am nominating my lovely wife and partner Veronica.
Wow.
I don't think it's the first time. I think there's an episode in the bank that I've nominated her before. Anyway, I'm nominating her for giving me the idea, essentially, for what is our breakdown today. So she was the one who had sent me the video of Netflix's trailer for their new the Cuphead show. And that was what kind of turned into the topic that we will be discussing towards the end of the episode here. So kudos to Veronica for helping me out.
Nice. I think you might have the edge here with our audience because presumably anyone listening likes the show. So if the play of the game was somebody offering a good... I guess it depends how good the breakdown is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a really shitty episode, in which case, I don't think
we can retroactively revoke the play of the game for Veronica.
Well, I personally would vote for your nomination because, I don't know, I think quitting social media in general is something that is hard to do, but can be very good for you. You know, like I deleted my Facebook probably a year ago now. I hadn't really been using it, and the only times that I ever really encountered it were not pleasant things, if that makes sense. So it wasn't doing anything positive to my life, and just shedding it and forgetting about it entirely has certainly been a good thing for me. So for sure. I respect that, definitely.
Do you think that deleting your social media, this is a tangent on a tangent, but do you think deleting your social media is a uniquely millennial thing to do? Because the boomers either don't have social media or they're just always on Facebook uploading vitriol and horrible pictures. And the Zoomers are super plugged in. So is like quitting social media just uniquely a millennial thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a product of us living through the inception of that, or the implementation of that, right? So living without it, seeing firsthand as it becomes a thing, and kind of experiencing it as it changed, and then not liking where you've gotten from where you started. It is an interesting thought.
As opposed to a Zoomer who it's been ubiquitous and a part of your life.
Yeah, you're just inundated with it. It is what it is, right? Like, you live that. You don't really have a choice, it seems like, I'm sure, for kids these days.
Right. Interesting. Food for thought.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about the boomer side of things. Get them off the internet.
Banned.
All right, on to segment 2. Pew, 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 pew!
2 to the 1, from the 1 to the 3. What's up? This is Jeff from the Overwatch team, making changes that you wouldn't believe gonna take you out with a long-range beam.
I appreciate the music sting, even though I have a music sting.
That way you know where it's at. You can find it easily.
More behind-the-scenes extras with Kenny and Matt. Oh, this is my segment. Shit.
I was going to say, I can intro it still if you'd like.
No, this is the meta with Kenny. We're going to be talking about League of Legends, my favorite game. I know it's hard to say what your favorite game is, but certainly the game I have played by far the most. I'd be horrified to see my total time. I know there are websites you can go to where you can actually see your total time played, which no. I remember in college, I played Smash Brothers every waking moment that I had free and was available to. And I remember we got into the Wii, and there you can see how long you've played, and it was measuring it in weeks of time. I was like, holy shit.
I think I have a problem.
That would pale in comparison with my League of Legends time at this point.
It's one of those things, you'd have to deconstruct it, right? And understand how long over a period of time, and like really think about it to not feel bad. But yeah, the number slapping you in the face probably would be a little terrifying.
I prefer denial. I'm just not going to look at it.
I mean, I feel that way about Overwatch, and that's like, I don't know, hundreds of hours at this point over the course of 5 or 6 years now, right? So,
right.
And like you said, I'm sure your league hours are 10 times that.
I was going to say, hundreds of hours, you can do that in a single Final Fantasy game. That's no big deal. Okay, but anyway, League of Legends. It is a new season of League of Legends. We've talked about this before, but unlike other games that have like a season every month or every couple months, League of Legends has a season per year. And so it's a new season for the pro players, and it's a new season for me, a silver player, currently silver. I finished gold last season, which was very exciting. But you restart, and so your rank resets, and you have to climb back up. Typical ranking bullshit.
How does that work? So your rank resets, but they obviously don't drop you to the very bottom, right?
No, they take into consideration where you started. It's a bit obscure. Like, it's not totally clear.
Okay.
But when you start a new season, there's preseason, which goes on for a long time, and they keep the ranks there. I don't know if that affects where you're going to go, but... and then when the season starts, you play placement matches, 10 games. And the way it works now is, after your first game, it gives you what they call a provisional rank, which will be lower than where you ended up previously, usually by a few levels.
If you can show that you can keep that gold throughout the rest of your placements, it might start to bump you back up.
It'll bump you up. It's not going to take you back where you were. They always want to leave some distance for you to climb back up, which I think is a good thing. It's satisfying to reestablish where you were. And the provisional thing is cool because you can't, even if you lose every single game after that first provisional rank, you won't drop below that. That's like your minimum rank is what they set you up with. And then you can get further from there. But in the preseason, League of Legends always does some big shakeup with the game. For example, well, it kind of comes in two different varieties. Sometimes they have a huge, massive shakeup that fundamentally changes the game in some way. So like several seasons ago, they reworked the entire item shop. All of the items, well, not all the items, but tons and tons of items changed. Some were completely removed, tons were added into the game, so it really changed how you approach the game. And it was really exciting in the preseason, like, what kind of crazy shit can I get up to? And then sometimes, like this season, they're smaller, more tweaking shakeups. So they added a few extra items to address some problems they saw. And they added 2 new drakes. So you have these neutral objectives you're trying to take during the game. These drakes, when you kill them, you get the stacking bonus that makes you stronger for the rest of the game. If you kill 4 drakes, you claim a dragon soul, it's called, and you get a huge buff, a mega buff.
Are all of Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's randomly determined what kind of soul is going to be on the table for that game. So they had Infernal, which amps your damage, a Wind Drake, which gives you move speed, Ocean Drake, which gives you healing and regeneration, and a Mountain Drake, which gives you a shield. What was your question?
So you said they added 2 new drakes. They kept all of the original drakes, and they're just adding 2 more on top of that?
That is correct. And the two new drakes they added were the Hextech Drake, which is a tie-in for our later segment, and the Chemtech Drake.
Oh, shit. I didn't even... I'm glad you told me that, because I would have been lost on me.
Yeah, so the Hextech and the Chemtech, which is like the Piltover Drake and the Zon Drake, basically. And in preseason, they're working with the numbers and trying to balance things. They're okay. I'm not a huge fan of the new Drakes. It really feels like a case of trying to fix something that isn't broken. They introduced the Drakes many seasons ago. Eventually, they added like the Elder Soul and all of that stuff, and it's been great. It's something cool to fight over. It's a way to push the game along and bring it to a conclusion. It feels powerful while still allowing you some comeback potential. When you're down, your opponents are about to take their fourth. It's really high pressure. It's really cool, and it seemed like they had finally found a good balance where you want all of the Drakes. Maybe one's a little bit better than the other, but they feel roughly balanced. And then they're just like, here's two more. It's like, why? Who asked for this? And one thing the Drakes do, too, that I didn't include when I was summarizing them, is when it takes a while to determine which is going to be the dominant element that you're fighting for. When it's determined, it has some big sweeping effect on the map. So, for example, when the Ocean Soul arrives, the map, it starts raining, a bunch more bushes spring up, so you have more places to hide, and a bunch of these plants pop up that you can pop, and they work as health packs, basically. So it changes how the map works. The problem I have, and a lot of players have this problem, is the Chemtech Drake. When it arrives, it puts these two enormous fart clouds on the map. Like, not as big as a quadrant of the map, but pretty damn big.
A big chunk.
And you are camouflaged when you're in that chunk. Anybody who walks in there is camouflaged. So it makes it an absolute nightmare to try to navigate the map, because you just have all these invisible people walking around. Like, every time you walk into the zone, or even near it, you could be about to be fucked, and there's just nothing you can do, really.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how they would balance that out, right? Like, does it need to be a smaller size? Does it just not make sense for the game? Yeah.
I think it needs to be a smaller size. One thing they added are these plants that you can hit, and they give you a cone of vision, a big cone of vision in front of you. So that allows you some level of checking, but I just find it really obnoxious to play with. Like, vision in the game is so important, and this is such a big change to the map. It's like you're not quite playing the same game anymore. I don't know.
I think I understand where you're coming from there. Like, so you're saying vision is a very important part of the game, and this like fundamentally changes how that works. So you basically have to learn this entirely different kind of play style, like how entirely different game, like you're saying, when this is applied. I do have a question too, and this is a very basic question from ages ago when League was first around. Was there always Drakes? You said Drakes were introduced at some point. Were there always like the bear? Was there a point in the game when there was no objective like that came up to speed the game along and to have some sort of thing to kind of, like you said, fight over and force the teams to come together and...
So the short answer from me is yes, those always existed. But I wasn't playing in those early days. So the Baron always existed. The Dragon always existed. But what the Baron and the Dragon did have completely changed.
Okay.
The Baron gave a buff, and I think it just made you, like, really strong. I don't know. I think it just buffed your stats. The Dragon, it was like a mini version of the same thing. It was quite boring. And the problem with them is that they didn't force the game to come to a conclusion. Whereas the Drake, it's like the slow buildup of stats until eventually you get this huge buff at the end. And the Baron is just a one-shot. It's not there at the beginning of the game, but eventually it appears. And when you take it, you get incredible power to push your opponents into their base and start taking objectives. So, yeah. And the Dragon has an even more ridiculous one, which almost guarantees the game's going to end. After you claim the soul, the Dragon still spawns, but it's an Elder Dragon, and either team can kill it. And when you do, you get a buff that lasts for like 2 minutes or something like that. And what it does is, if anybody on your team damages your opponent and reduces them below, I think it's 15% health or something, they're instantly executed.
So it just gives you kill shots.
Yes, exactly. It just reduces your opponent's health bars by 15%, which is pretty backbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, then you get that, and it's like you just have to take any fight you can get, basically, and you'll win. But anyway, these two new Drakes, they're toning them down and trying to... I'm sure they'll land in a fine spot. And I remember, griping about all kinds of changes to the game that now I don't mind. I think I complained, not complained, but I wondered about that Elder Soul buff. Like, is that too good? And it's like, yeah, it's fine. At that point in the game, it's really like game deciding anyway, so I think it's fine. The other thing going on right now is the LCS, the North American pro scene, has started, and they're doing what they're calling their lock-in tournament, which is a horrible name because it has nothing to do with, like, you might think it's about locking in positions in the ranks or something. Nope, it's just a tournament to start the season. It totally doesn't affect the rankings at all, but there is $150,000 on the line.
It's not bad. I'd like to lock that in.
Well, that's the crazy thing is, like, this is like the throwaway, opening tournament of the LCS, and its prize pool is bigger than tons of esports, like, main event is. Like, they just have so much money.
I mean, that absolutely dwarfs, like, Overwatch League winnings, right? Like, those teams were making, I don't know, like $10,000 or something. I could be speaking out of my ass right now, but I feel like it's not anywhere close to $150,000.
I love it. I love all those people bitching about the sponsors and the ads for League of Legends pro scene. Like, shut up.
That's what it's all about, yeah.
It's great. Like, there's money in this scene. Like, it's going to keep going.
You want Ford to be sponsoring this shit and dumping money into it. Yeah, as lame as it sounds, it's
yeah, it's like Bud Light and Honda are sponsoring the LCS. Fuck yes.
These are multi-billion-dollar companies that are like recognizing this as a way to make money for themselves. So hey,
I think it's great. That's all I got for you right now. I could talk about specific champions, but I think we want to probably get down to breaking it down.
I think that's fair. Well, thank you for the update. I will be interested to hear how this first tournament goes, see if there's any craziness that happens. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
There has been. I feel like enough time's gone by, so spoilers are done. But in the first bout of games, there was a pentakill, and it was done by a mage playing the attack damage role, which was pretty damn exciting to watch.
Something unique, something you don't see very often.
Definitely not.
Someday I'll know what's going on. When I watch a league match, I know somewhat what's going on, but I'll know better someday.
You know enough to have cast a game.
That's true. All right, great. Well, thank you again, Kenny. We'll be back with the breakdown after a quick break from our sponsors.
Hey, Amber.
Hey, Kenny.
I got a question for you.
Okie dokie.
If you were a burn spell, how much damage would you do?
Infinity!
So greedy.
Infinity, infinity, infinity! Kill all creatures!
Speaking of infinity, if you want infinite good content, you should check out our Magic the Gathering podcast, Red Mage Blue Mage, on the Geekspective Network.
Right, you'll hear great content, such as me reading you fan fiction, and also us asking each other more stupid questions, and talking about constructing and designing cards.
Yeah, and doing cube drafts and commander games against each other. You can hear this content, this infinite content, on Spotify, iTunes, and other major platforms.
You can find us on Twitter at RedBlueMTG.
So why don't you come along over? Yeah, fuck.
Say that!
Oh, let's break it down! Why are you so angry?
Muggsy, what we need is a little fun and adventure.
Con evil. Cuphead, I'm not so sure.
You know what I do when I'm not so sure? I double down!
What does that even mean?
Wow!
And we're back!
Woo!
All right.
No time at all.
Yeah, literally it was about 2 seconds, according to my recording. So this week, I already gave the play of the game to Veronica for this topic, and I mentioned she sent me a video it was the trailer for the Cuphead show, which is going to be coming out on Netflix. For those of you who aren't familiar, Cuphead is a video game. It's a 2D run and gun or boss fight. Basically, those are kind of the two styles of levels you play. And you can play it by yourself. You can play it co-op with a partner. You're essentially this little Cuphead guy shooting guns, trying to avoid damage, learning bosses. It's renowned for how difficult it is. There are different difficulty settings, and even the basic difficulty is hard. But if you're a masochist, you can go for more. It's got a really cool kind of old school retro art style, like a 1920s kind of art style. And this
very like classic Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. And the music quality and songs and everything kind of follow into that same vibe. And so Netflix is working with the creators of that game to come out with a show. And this led me to kind of think about another video game turned to a television property that you and I both watched recently, Arcane, which is a League of Legends property. And I kind of wanted to just talk about video games that go into this other media areas, what makes them successful or not, and just see where that takes us. And I want to start with Arcane. We'll get to Cuphead after that, but I want to start with Arcane because we both watched the entire thing. You're a League of Legends player. I am not. So you're familiar with the lore and the champions. I am not. And I guess I'll start with asking you this question. So I have no knowledge of the background or anything that happened in the game, and I freaking loved the show. It was wonderful. Really great story, really great characters, and I'm curious, did knowing the characters and the lore, I'm sure it added something, but how much did it add, I guess, to your experience of the show?
Ooh, good question. I would say, actually, this is a good tie-in. Maybe I can answer that, and we can get into this. I thought maybe we could just do like a little miniature review of Arcane while we're talking about it.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And I actually, in my notes about Arcane, I addressed the very thing that you're talking about. So let's start, just spoiler-free. I agree with you. It's extremely good. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. You do not have to know or care about League of Legends at all.
I can promise you that, yep.
Yeah. It's just, if you enjoy like fantasy and you're cool with like good animation, then you can definitely enjoy this and know absolutely fuck all about League of Legends. If you do, I would say what the enhancement I got out of it was, one, seeing the little nods and the little nuggets here and there throughout the series. But it doesn't feel fan servicey. It doesn't feel like, Rogue One, where it's like every 2 seconds it's some character from the old movies. Or it's like, it's not like that at all. The excitement I got from it as far as being a League player was seeing it realized so fully, having backstories and characters fleshed out as we've never seen them before. Because League of Legends itself, the game, like, you get voice lines from these characters and animations, and that's it. Like, there is no story in the actual game of League of Legends other than the voice lines. So actually seeing them come alive and feeling more like real characters and real people, I think that was fun. And if you're not a League of Legends player, you won't get that particular joy. It's like, if you saw a whole show, to bring it back to Overwatch, where they fleshed out one of these characters, you might get a special kind of pleasure out of like, wow, like we actually got to see like the backstory of Reaper actually play out, and it was really cool and compelling. And you might get a little extra joy above and beyond just seeing a cool story.
Were there any voice lines from the game that made it into the show?
Good question. I can tell you one that it's not a voice line, it's an entire song. So We might be straying into spoilers now, so if you want no spoilers, then
Go watch.
You can feel free to
go watch Arcane.
Go watch.
Come back.
Go watch
to
the
this.
entire series. Come back. Take note of the timestamp you're on right now. When Jinx is like building stuff, she's playing a song on her music player, and that song was Jinx's actual theme song that debuted with her, 7 years ago or whenever it was.
Gotcha.
And it was so jarring. Like it's a pretty famous song in the League community, I would say. And so to hear it like pop up as like part of the world was like, wow, this is cool. This is interesting.
Well, that was what I was thinking about the voice lines. Was almost like you'd have to find a way to really organically and like organically put it in there and make it feel natural and good. I feel like you could easily put a voice line in that came off as cheesy, just
definitely. Interestingly, I think it actually almost works backwards, because there are voice lines that have been in the game for years and years now that are now much cooler in retrospect, because Jinx had a line that she's had from debut and just 7 years ago or whatever it was, where she goes, "You think I'm crazy? You should meet my sister." And there's all kinds of little stuff like that where it's like, I don't think they had it planned back then, but it's cool that they incorporated it all.
Right, I was going to say, it's almost like they kept that in mind, right, when they were working on this.
Definitely. And in that, going back to the music video that came out when Jinx was brand new, it prominently features the little wind-up monkey with the cymbals, which, again, don't think they had that planned, but it was cool to see it incorporated.
I mean, and that was a huge part of the plot.
Gigantic.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. I really loved in general, like, so the character development in the show was just really strong, and there's not like you know who's like good and bad, I guess I'll put it in those terms, but they make it so it's much less black and white than that, right? Like, in terms of the city and the undercity there, and the struggles that different people are dealing with, like, they don't make it nice and easy for you to necessarily root for one person or another person. And I really enjoyed that, like, I think they really did flesh out these characters and turn them into people that you care about in some way, regardless of which character you're dealing with, basically.
And also regardless of if you totally agree with them. Yeah.
They kind of give you a view into what has led them to that point, led them to those decisions or those actions.
Totally. Yeah, it's super good. The animation is gorgeous and innovative. I've heard people say that it feels like they're ripping off Into the Spider-Verse. And there's certain parts where you can definitely see that, but that's actually backwards, I've learned since then.
Because they've been working on this for so long.
Well, the studio that made this Fortiche, a lot of the animators who worked on Into the Spider-Verse came up out of Fortiche.
Oh.
So they're the ones who kind of like, this is kind of their shtick, and then it got transferred over. So there's a lot of cross-pollination in the animation world, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, it's not like watching it, I think they copied this or took this from somewhere else.
No.
I think the way they do certain like important scenes and shift the art style completely to something different is really cool. Like, there's just like, there's a greater vision in how the show is done that is just really, it's really well directed from that perspective. Like they make things more impactful just by shifting that art style for certain things, and kind of there's no words, there's no like exposition or anything like that. It's just like what you're seeing on the screen, and you can absorb it so much.
Yeah, I was thinking when I was taking notes on this, in terms of like lessons, like future video game companies that want to replicate this success, like what do you need to learn from this? And you've kind of pointed out one, which is have someone with this sort of big vision. It's like what's his name from the Marvel universe, Kevin Feige, is that his name?
Oh yeah, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name or not, but yes, I know who you're talking about. Like
somebody who has an idea of the full vision. You want that. It was one thing I kept thinking after I finished the whole series. The series is 9 episodes, 45 minutes a pop, so you're talking like 6 hours of content. It's like it's almost the same length as the new Star Wars sequel trilogy, and it's like a million times more coherent and satisfying. And it's like it's telling one complete story, and it's kind of like mind blowing. It's like Star Wars, like Disney couldn't get that right for their tentpole thing, and League of Legends made something way better, in my opinion. And I think that's down to having a cohesive vision. And I think it's also down to League of Legends. I'm sure they had all kinds of input on this, but this really seems like to be Fortitia's and the writer's vision. And interestingly, there's kind of been some discussion after Arcane has come out, because Arcane is not canon in the League of Legends world. So these aren't the actual official in-game stories of these characters. And I've made my peace with that. I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing, even if you want to bring your video game property to a new media, is don't get precious about the canon. Like, let them make choices that make sense for whatever they're adapting it to.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think, too, I mean, yeah, why strap yourself with that, right? Why give yourself that limitation that you have to overcome? And, I mean, it sounds like, based on what you said about the lore of the game itself, like, it's pretty open when it comes down to it anyway. And you can I feel like you can take the bits that they give you and, you know, potentially twist them into what you want in this series.
Totally. Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff. Like, Heimerdinger, for example, is a great character in Arcane. I love what they did with him. They took crazy liberties with him and what he's like in this world, right down to his age. I forget, in the show he's like 300 and some. I think in the game he's immortal, basically. Like, I don't know. It's they made all kinds of new and interesting choices. Victor feels like a completely different character, and that's not a bad thing. Like, so many of these characters were like kind of nothing characters. Singed, I don't even think he's named in the show. But Victor goes and talks to his friend, the older doctor guy.
Yeah, the guy who had the purple monster-y thingy he was keeping alive,
yes.
Right? Yep.
Yes. So that you asked earlier about were there anything in there that I really enjoyed as a League player. Having the series start with that doctor guy, and he just seems like, you know, creepy mad scientist doctor character. And then, like, halfway through the series, after like his accident he gets into, and he's experimenting more, and he's got his dead eye, and he puts on that cowl over his face, that like high collar, and I was like, holy shit, it's Singed. Like, it's a character from the game that I didn't recognize at first. And I was like, this is so cool, because Singed is such a stupid joke in the game. And they even managed to make Singed interesting and cool. In the game, he's this big, lanky guy. He has a giant bottle on his back, and he has a big, like, riot shield. And he goes, "How about a drink?" And he's an awful character in the game, awful. And they even made him cool in the show.
And I love this. Like, so stepping back into the League of Legends business people's minds, like, this is an opportunity for them to bring interest into some of these characters who might be not really thought about, or not, you know, not played, or not important, and like get more interest in just pieces of the game that people don't care about, which I find that really cool too. You know, like, why would they make that choice to pick a character that no one really cares about and thinks is a joke, and turn them into this like cool, interesting, like, part of the show, character. You know? And it's, I don't know, I think it's cool that they would just go ahead and do that. You could very easily just pick the top 10 champs that people love to play and try to make a show out of that somehow. I did love that. I don't know that would work out, you know, the same way that this did. So
I don't think it would. And that was something I was worried about. It was just going to be all the most like marketable anime girl characters. And you do get that. I mean, you know, Jinx is Harley Quinn. You get, you know, Vi is like in game, she like is basically a pinup lady. Jace is sexy boy, but then we get lanky ass sick Victor, who's awesome. We get Heimerdinger, you know, we get like everybody loves Echo. Echo's the best. But yeah, you get Singed, like all these characters, and here's another lesson I think these other video games should take. Something I was worried about when Arcane started. I was crossing my fingers that would be great. I was worried that they were going to make it so that all of the main characters are people we already know from the game. But they didn't do that. There are lots and lots of good characters, great characters, that are not in the game at all. And of course that gives them the option to introduce them to the game later, but like there's so many characters that are just fresh new characters and are really well done and well developed. Like Silco is not in the game. His right-hand lady with the robo-arm is not in the game. Mel's mom is not in the game, and I love Mel's mom. Mm-hmm. She's the best. Mm-hmm. All kinds of characters. I mean, Mel wasn't in the game. Still isn't in the game.
And I agree. I like that they didn't limit themselves in that way, right? They decided to make a good story with some building blocks from the League universe and then fill it out as made sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So, with all of what we've discussed in mind about Arcane, I want to ask a question or two to kind of lead us into the rest of the conversation here that I'd like to have.
Okay.
So what do you think makes, like, I try to distill this down into kind of some basic things, but what do you think makes Arcane a good show?
Wow, that's a big question. Just in general, what makes it a good show?
Yep.
Good characters that are very well drawn, and I just mean like animated well. I mean, each of those characters you can distill down to some key personality traits. Like they're easily encapsulated. If you had to describe one to somebody else, you could do it. I think that not only are they really well drawn characters, they are, I want to say, likable. Like even like the villain Silco, there's an attraction there. Like he's interesting and compelling in his own right as well. I think it's visually great. I think it has great world building. I think there's a good emotional core of the story that you care about. Like at the end of the day, this is the story of Vi and Powder and how Powder gets lost and becomes Jinx. Like it's a tragedy basically. And I think it's a pretty simple story overall. It's just that you have all these layers of like a cool fantasy world and a cool like weird like almost Breaking Bad-esque rise and fall of an empire going on with it. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but my short answer is visually amazing, good well-drawn characters, and a good emotional core.
You mentioned that the story is not complex, and I think that's like, I think in storytelling in general, it doesn't have to be a complicated story to be a well-told story, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
And you touched on a lot of different things that make this a well-told story. I think that's really what it comes down to. And that's like kind of what I want to segue into here. So this whole thing was prompted by the Cuphead show. I honestly don't want to talk about the Cuphead show too much. It looks like it might be entertaining. It's not going to be the same kind of show as Arcane. No. It seems like it's going to be, vignettes of these two mischievous cups who get in trouble with the devil. Like, we kind of know what you're getting into based on what that game is, right?
Can we talk about it for just a second? I know you just said you don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely, we can.
Who do you think this show is for? Because I saw it and I was like, it looks great, of course. Like, Cuphead looks great. And the show, I mean, it looks like one of those old-timey cartoons. But, like, who is it for? Because everything we've seen so far, it's just like a Bugs Bunny show, basically.
Yes.
Old-timey show where our cute characters are trying to outsmart a villain.
I think it's Bugs Bunny-y, but for adults, if that makes sense. Not that Bugs Bunny wasn't for adults, but I think the content might be a little bit higher, age group, generally speaking.
I have to assume that we haven't really seen what the show is.
I agree with that. And if you watch the trailer, it doesn't... what does it tell you? It tells you again,
It tells you the
essentially
basic plot from the game,
yeah, exactly. It basically says,
which is paper thin.
yeah, here's King Dice, here's the devil, here's the boys getting in trouble. There's not a whole lot to it. And right. I don't know that the show itself, there's going to be a whole lot more to it. Maybe there will. Maybe it'll shock us, and it'll be the most incredible cartoon drama we've ever seen in our lives. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be a cartoon drama. I do think there's a chance it will be... Here's my prediction. Prediction from Kenny about the Cuphead show. I think it will be like Rick and Morty, but instead of like a sci-fi veneer, it's old-timey cartoon veneer. So it'll be weekly episodes of some wacky thing, but there's like bigger underlying implications that build up over time. Because I think... I was talking to Jaren about this recently. We were talking about The Mandalorian for some reason, of which I've only watched season 1, which I really liked season 1. And Jaren was saying he had a hard time getting into it because the episodes had such a standalone nature. It's like modern audiences we're so used to big overarching stories that it's weird when they're like pluckable standalone episodes. So I doubt they're going to do pluckable standalone episodes entirely on the show.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. So let me ask you this question in response to your question. Who is the target audience of Arcane?
Everybody who likes fantasy stories.
And that's what I kind of want to get at in general. Like these video games that turn into other media, you have an audience who's interested in the property, but if you don't give an actual good quality something, then it's all for nothing, right? So the shows or the movies, whatever that media is only as good as you make it, regardless of what, a successful game obviously doesn't make a successful show or movie when it comes right down to it. And
definitely not.
I want to talk about movies really quick because I was Googling around looking at this stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about video game movies too because they're notoriously dog shit.
They're horrible. So I'm looking at a list here of English language live action video game movies. The best one score wise listed on here is something I've never heard of before: Werewolves Within, with a 66 out of 100 Metacritic score,
which is not very good.
Followed closely by Detective Pikachu at 53 out of 100. You basically, if you go through this list, it's a bunch of turds. It's a bunch of horrible, poopy turds that are just not good films. And it seems like the thing for video game movies is to be cash grabs. I don't know what else to say about it. There's not any real effort or thought put into them, it feels like, for the most part.
Yeah, and I don't know why. Because they could be cash grabs while still being good.
Right.
Which I think Arcane is a great example. They could have shit something out, I suppose, and it would have got watched by League of Legends fans. But wouldn't you rather make an awesome franchise that is beloved by people?
Well, and if you think of it in a long-term investment versus a short-term investment, if you do something that's going to bring audiences back and kind of continue to grow, you have more opportunity to continue to engage an audience and continue to make more money, right? So the short-term, just dumping something out there for people to watch, sure, I'm sure that they still make money on those, but there's just no, again, vision for the longer term goal there.
I think that's part of why League of Legends is a good vehicle for a TV show, because it's a game that it's still ongoing and it still has players putting money into it. Whereas a lot of other video games, it's one and done, or it's part of a series, so it only comes out so often. So you're not guaranteeing that you're roping in. League is trying to rope in active players. So they're more invested in making something compelling that will make people go, huh, what's this League of Legends game all about?
Yeah, that's very true. And I guess that's a big difference, too, in, the type of games that have become movies or shows at this point, right? League of Legends is a team-based, you're getting a rank, you're trying to climb the ladder game. And a lot of these games that have turned into shows or movies are single player story games or even single player side scroller games. Freaking Mario has a live action movie. Sonic the Hedgehog has got a second one coming out.
I can't believe it has a second one coming out.
I watched the first one, and What I would
below 53% rating, from what I understand.
what I would say about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is that it's not good by any means, but
it's watchable.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's like an hour and 25 minutes. I've definitely seen worse.
Why did you watch it?
I'll tell you why. Veronica gave birth in the hospital, and Sonic the Hedgehog was one of the movies that we could watch on the television there. So we watched it together with our one-day-old daughter. And,
is that the first movie she ever watched?
It probably has scarred her for life, yeah. She's not set up for success now. We followed it up with Jurassic Park when we got home not too long after, so I think we balanced it out a bit. You know, we went
She's
for
back to even.
Yeah, exactly. We reset the clock there.
That's funny. I remember when I had my appendix out, one of the only things I remember watching, I think Dad was watching me, he was in the bathroom at the time, and there was an Avril Lavigne live concert on TV, and I just lay there wanting to die.
In misery, yeah.
No offense to Avril Lavigne. Like, I'm not hating on her music. I'm just saying she's awful live.
It's also just not what you wanted to watch, right? I mean...
No, I would not have set it to that on my own.
Can somebody wheel in the N64 for me, please?
I was just hitting the morphine drip.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what I've learned from all of this is that a good story is a good story.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what source content it is. I think that the video game tie-in is more than anything, you have a captive audience, right? You've got people who are interested in this already, who are going to give it a chance because they like the game. But more often than not, as a fan, you get let down in these scenarios.
Yes, definitely. That is a thing. So Amber and I watched this together, and one of her early comments, we were like 3 episodes in, and she looked at me, she's like, tell me, what is it like to have some property that you love so much do justice to their franchise, to the property in other media, like in a TV show or in a movie? And I was like, I've never felt this way in my whole life. This is amazing. Because the show is coming out, and I was like, oh, the previews make it look good, but previews always make it look good. I hope it's not dog shit. And it turned out it was just excellent. I wanted to bring up, too, I don't know if you've watched this. I have not, but I've heard the Castlevania show on Netflix is very good.
I have not watched it at all. I have no knowledge on it whatsoever. I know of the Castlevania franchise, and that started as just a side scroller kind of game too, right? Like a fairly simple game when it comes down to it.
My guess is this animated show is going to tick a lot of the same boxes I just mentioned about what made Arcane good. It's like distinct, awesome visuals, which I know it has. Willing to take liberties with the story, use the game as a jumping off point to tell a cooler story. So it's something that I want to check out. I don't think it's also a fairly limited run from what I understand as well. One last question I have for you. Mm-hmm. I have an answer to this. I want to hear what your answer is. Would you want to see a Bloodborne show or movie?
Would I want to see a Bloodborne show or movie? Potentially. I think that... So, you and I have talked extensively about Bloodborne and about what we believe to be the events over time in that universe that's encapsulated in the game, in the DLC and in the original game. I think there's opportunity to tell... So, I don't know. So this is tough. I think there's opportunity there, but one of the beautiful things about Bloodborne is kind of the lack of really knowing.
Yes.
And I think when you start to define stuff, they might define something in a way that isn't satisfying to you, and it might be disappointing. So I think to do that successfully, you would still have to toe that line of like giving us info but not giving us all the info. Really being true to the game and showing us something without telling us all of the details. So I think it could be done. I think it could be enjoyable. I think if I saw a trailer for it right now, my immediate thought would be, oh man, I don't know about this.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't know about this at all.
Yeah, for those reasons I said no, I don't want to see it. one, like you said, I mean, it's the opposite of League. Remember when I said it was cool to see these like barely sketched out characters really getting fleshed out and deepened? Mm-hmm. I want the opposite in Bloodborne. I don't want things to be fleshed out. I don't want things to be expanded and delved into more. And the other thing with me, Bloodborne, that I thought was super cool is I love, like, to me, Bloodborne has a great story, but it's very important to me in that story that you are playing it as a game. You are the one doing it and exploring and uncovering. And I think you would lose that taking it and making it into a show. That's what made it so unique as like a cosmic horror thing. Like, you are the one actually out there in the world.
Yeah, and you're experiencing, like, I remember the first time realizing that you're seeing different things in the same area of the game than you used to. And having zero idea what was driving that. And, now that I know, like, specifically what mechanic in the game, what number in the game drives that, it's a little different. But at the time, you have no idea. And you're accumulating this stat over time anyway. That's how the game goes. And there's just more stuff coming into your vision that's just weird. And, you can't recreate that in a show. You definitely can't. You can't experience it the same.
No. And when you try to do that, you get something like Doom, where they like incorporated like first person shooting into the movie, and it's like, oh god, no, wrong.
That's not why I'm here. I think
this is a movie.
On the flip side of this, I think that the Dark Souls franchise could potentially be a cool show or movie. Like, I think that lore is more fleshed out, but also like you have to seek it out to really to get to know it. You really got to dig in and read all the different items and things to kind of understand it. Which is true of Bloodborne too, but in Dark Souls it's like still giving you like facts and like history and stuff, if that makes sense. And in Bloodborne there's this whole cosmic portion of it that just is nobody knows,
Right.
So I think from a Dark Souls perspective it could actually work much better.
I think so too. And like they've already established in the Dark Souls series, like each one is about a new kingdom or a new iteration of the same kingdom. So it'd be very easy just it's a Dark Souls show set in a land we've never heard of because it's another cycle that's happening.
Yeah.
And you can make up whole new lore and whole new characters and just go to town.
Yeah. I'd watch it. Shit.
Yeah, that one might excite me. Whereas I completely agree with you. If they announced Bloodborne the show, I'd be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, now I have to pay attention to what's going on here, but I'm probably just not going to like this.
I'm going to get disappointed.
Yeah. Yep. And then that in turn makes you like less... I think part of the problem there is that Bloodborne has this like shiny... it's just like this beautiful kind of thing over here. And if you do that show now, it might start to dull that a little bit. It might take away some of the beauty from that original piece.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think, Dark Souls 2 is a fine game, but it does take a little bit of the luster off the original Dark Souls, I think.
Man, well, this is fun.
Arcane.
I was going to say, this became just a plug for watching Arcane, which I think is a valuable show to put out there anyway.
I was going to say, it's a good use of our time.
Yeah, definitely. I very much enjoyed it. I know very little about League.
I will say this. If you like the show and you're like, I want to check out the game, please feel free. But just know it is nothing like the television show. And I think that's part of our point, though. Like, a good adaptation for the screen should probably be fundamentally different than the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it.
I would hate it. I would have hated it if the show was about taking towers and capturing an opponent's nexus. Like, how shitty would that have been?
That would have been very lame. It would have been... it wouldn't have been cool. It would not have been nearly as enjoyable as what it was. Go check it out. It's awesome. That's all I have to say.
It gets the intangible seal of approval.
That's right. That's how you know it's good.
I like immediately the idea of an intangible seal of approval is like it's invisible.
Yeah, you can't see it at all. Yeah, you can't see it. You can't feel it. It's there.
You know it's there.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for talking with me tonight, Kenny. Thank you
Pleasure.
to our wonderful audience for listening to us. I am, and maybe will always be, who knows, Matt.
I am currently at time of recording Kenny.
We are the Intangibles, and we miss you already.
Good night.
And goodbye.
And good luck.
And good tootin'.
And good riddance.